Good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Green here with No More News. Joining me today back on the show. Been on the show many times over many years. He's always had me on as well. We always have interesting conversations. From across the pond over in England, Britain's most wanted, the leader and founder of Patriotic Alternative, Mark Collett is here to chat with us. What's up, Mark? How's it going, bro?
It's going awfully because it's about 32 degrees C here. And for anyone who is a true European, this is not European weather. Well, it might be in somewhere like Spain or southern France, but for people who live in Britain, this is far too hot. And if you're wondering why I'm sweating profusely, it's about the second or third hottest day. We've had this heat wave here, and unfortunately, it doesn't work for me. Like lots
we got
of
something
things
over here in America called AC. You Europeans might not know much about it, but it keeps us cool when it's real hot.
They're banning air conditioning in Britain, banning it because it's not climate friendly. But look, we don't get many days like this. So air conditioning, like spending £10,000 on air conditioning to air condition your whole house would be ridiculous in the UK. But it is very hot. So if people are wondering why I look sort of shinier than usual, it's because it is unseasonably hot. You know, for this time in summer, usually we have our hottest weather in August, but this is kind of early July. It's very, very hot, and it's taken its toll on me. But I do have a giant chilled glass of Smurf juice, and this will hopefully keep me from overheating. But also the caffeine levels
spears in there too.
Cause me to go
there?
crazy.
You got some pineapple spears in that blue drink you got there?
No, it's basically just a giant energy drink, but it is it tastes very nice. It is very cool, and it will keep me going for the entire duration of the show without melting or frying my brain because of the heat. So it's a necessary
the sweating's
evil.
not because you did all those push-ups right before we went live so you get a little pump going?
We've just finished our push-up challenge. Well, it's not a push-up challenge. We do a summer challenge, which is 100 push-ups a day, 100 sit-ups, and 100 squats. And we've just finished that. I completed it 9,000 exercises in June. But we do a push-up challenge in November where we do 300 plus push-ups every day for the month.
Like the
that
PA guys, killer. You mean by we, right?
Well, anyone that wants to join in, anyone who's on Telegram, who's a nationalist, who wants to get involved and wants to sort of improve themselves physically.
Do you guys do the Jared Taylor plank push-up? You do those?
Just the regular. Just the regular. I do love exercise. Exercise is something I love, but since I've had my second child, so I've got a daughter and a son, but that has really affected my ability to go to the gym because having one child is hard, but sort of the second child, you think it would just double the amount of work, but it seems to do more. It's almost like triples the amount of work.
Exponentially more messes.
It's a lot more. It's a lot more. And things like tea times, bath times, coordinating it all. It's really difficult. So,
yo, dude, are you discouraging the white race from having more babies right now, bro? Are you anti-natalism, bro?
It's very hard, but it's
so
also
hard. Don't do it, white man.
But the best things in life are always difficult. That's really my take. That if you anything that's worth having, you usually have to fight hard to get it. And a family life is difficult at times, but it's absolutely wonderful. And I can tell you this. With my son, he's only about 16 months, but seeing him do things like the first time he goes up the slide and goes down on his own, the first time he does the rope bridge at the soft play, all those milestones are just amazing. And for all the hard work it is, when your child does something that is wonderful, I can tell you it's the most gratifying thing. And although it's hard work, have as big a family as you can. I wish I wasn't 45. I wish I was 35. I wish I had 3 more kids in me. Because honestly, if I'd have started having children earlier, I think after having 2, I would have probably gone for 4. And both me and my wife have said if we weren't the age we were when we started, we would have more. So it is difficult, but it's definitely worthwhile. And look, I've met Adam in real life, and few people live the actual nationalist lifestyles. A lot of people online who do a lot of talking, but Adam lives there. And I've met his wife, I've met his children. He's got a lovely, lovely family. And if there's one guy that you can believe in and that
Thanks for covering for my my babies and my Jewish babies, Mark. That's so nice of you.
What? I met him at the synagogue, and they were just
Yeah, you left that part out. Yeah, they were.
He's got a lovely white family. Adam's family is lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, that was so cool. That was right in front of the big cathedral in York, and where the statue of Constantine, where he was anointed the emperor. That was such a cool spot. Amazing English sandwich, like the famous Harry Potter street. It was that was amazing. My Aliyah moment back to England. But we just celebrated 4th of July, 250 years. Did you congratulate us, or is that too soon? Is that a sore subject still?
No, look, it's kind of strange because America is a young nation, and America, as we know it, is obviously the creation of white European men and white European women. But I look at where America is today, and I think you and I have had friendly debates about this, but I see America largely as now something that was once wonderful and European, but now completely almost co-opted from the top down by Jewish power. And it's sad to see that you tamed this incredible continent and you made it your own. But now, you're basically being used in the Middle East again as pawns for Israel. And it's very sad because you are wonderful people. And what whites achieved in America in a very small space of time was such a Herculean task. And to turn that entire continent into a wonderful sort of homage to your European heritage as you did was absolutely brilliant. And I think that 250 years is fantastic. And I hope that you shake off the shackles of those who control you and make it another 250 years.
I know, seriously, yeah. You can't let it slip away. Even the founders talked about, like, you have to really fight to keep it. Speaking of slipping away, I remember this happened 3 months ago. I'll share this. When I saw this, I was interested to get Mark's take. So the new Archbishop of the Church of England had her coronation. Hold on, let me pull this up for you. Boom, 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 boom. Did you see this? Did you see the coronation of the new leader of the church in England?
I did not see this.
Here's her coronation. And she's a female and very liberal. This is my first question. So this was going on. We got African dancers and the new Church of England. It's not looking good for the Church of England and Christianity in England. Also, did you see the Pope the other day with the migrants at the door to the gateway to Europe? Did you see that? And how every day the Pope's talking about more immigrants and take care of the neighbor and the boats. And I was just interested in your take on some of the state of.
Well, look, I've already said to you, sort of, I'm not as opposed to Christianity as you are, but I will say this. And we've talked about what I perceive to be the importance of Christianity in the sense of a community and the church being at the center of the community in traditional English villages. So when I see something like this, I genuinely find it quite heartbreaking. I find it a parody of what things once were in England, and to see some sort of vile multiculturalist feminist taking over the Church of England. Now I know that really it's going to be little more than another way to indoctrinate people and to make people feel guilt for being white, to make people embrace LGBT values and embrace migration. But look at them. I can tell you this now, and it's very interesting because you and I had a lengthy discussion on my channel. It was a little bit of a debate, and it was very, very interesting, actually, because we do have different perspectives on certain things. And I was talking to you about these beautiful old churches that were at the center of every village in England. I don't know what your take will be on
all of Europe. All of Europe. And America, pretty much. A church
well,
at
look,
the center of every town.
in England, many of those churches are now being sold off for less than £100,000 for really a fraction of what they're worth because they're empty.
Mm-hmm.
And they're empty because of people like the woman you just displayed on the screen. And it's very, very unfortunate. But women like her, people like her, have emptied the church because when my mother used to go to church as a young girl and she was in the choir, and when she got married in that same church to my father, that church was the backbone of the local community. But they're now empty. And they're empty because fundamentally, the people who go to church are overwhelmingly conservative with a small c. They are traditionalists. They have conservative values, not the Conservative Party, but I genuinely mean conservative values in that they want small government. They want the right to free speech. They're polite, decent, upstanding people. They are traditionalists in the sense that most of them have families. And they've been driven out of the church. They've been driven out of the church by the pro-migrant narrative, by the LGBT filth, and by these feminist harridans that seem to be occupying every position in the hierarchy of the Church of England. And it's kind of interesting because I know we have a different perspective on this, but I would say that the people who've taken over the church are killing it. And when it's dead, I know that you'll probably be happy about that. And I have a very different opinion on that. But I'll say this, when it's dead, that's another community structure that held European villages and towns together that will be gone and lost. And whilst, say, the mosques will be filled, the churches will be empty. Whilst the synagogues will be filled, the churches will be empty. And whilst all other ethnic groups have something that binds them together and have community structures, unfortunately, what do we English men and women have? Well, everything that we ever had has been smashed. And the smashing of the church by women like this one you just showed, for me, it is quite sad.
It is sad, and you're making good points. If it's an institution that it has failed and it's not working because people don't believe in it enough to fill the pews and for the community to go there anymore, then I don't think I think it needs to be filled. There's going to be a vacuum, and there has to be filled with a different thing that unites a community. And trying to salvage it or keep kicking the can down the road when you can see where it's at and where it's led us, I think it is better that it goes away. But then it does have to be replaced by something else. But anyway, I couldn't wait to show the African dancers and to play devil's advocate. England does have a long history in colonization and a plundering of Europe. So having some Europeans there for the dance party to show how cultural are, that's a nicer way to look at it a little bit. But they are definitely, there's lots of black Christians in England also.
Well, look, the way I see things like this is, again, slightly different. If you look at the traditions that England is steeped in, and there are so many of them, things like the coronation of a new monarch, the things like the changing of an archbishop, or even the appointment of a Lord Mayor at a local level, these things used to be absolute ceremonies of really white greatness. The way people were dressed, the traditions, the way everything was choreographed as a show. It was beautiful. And to see what they're doing here and what they're trying to introduce almost turns that English ceremonial pomp into kind of a mockery. And I know why they're doing it. I know it's all part of the demoralization process. And unfortunately, for me, as somebody who's very proud to be English, I find it quite sad. But the church has, like every other institution in Britain, been absolutely captured, co-opted, taken over, whatever you want to say, by people who are absolutely vested in ensuring whites become a minority. And in the process of us becoming a minority, we have to have our noses rubbed in it and be humiliated in every way imaginable. And I see this as almost like a humiliation ceremony.
Yeah, it's definitely celebrating the diversity, but it's not like it's been hijacked and they're twisting Christianity. It's easy for the Christianity to come to this because it is a universal religion that sees everybody as like one family worshiping the Jewish Messiah together. When I was at one of the nice cathedrals, I can't remember if it was in Germany or England now, but it was around Christmas, and they had nativity scenes in this huge, beautiful cathedral from all over the world. And there was Asian Jesus and Black Jesus and Mexican Jesus, and everybody had their own version of their Jewish superhero, their Jewish character made in their image. But you know what, Mark? I honestly didn't mean to get in a religious debate with you. I wanted to start on the other things and what's on your mind. I just wanted to show you those African.
No, it's very interesting, and obviously,
yeah.
I hadn't seen all of that, and seeing it, you know.
Well, there you go. I'm happy
it's
to
a
be
good
the one to
jumping
show
off
it to
point.
you. We got a good laugh out of it when it happened. It's like, you know, hate to see it. But how about the Pope the Pope is really, and that's a super universal religion, and they're all about, you know, the whole world and immigration and stuff. It's really bad. But I wanted to ask first, pretend we'll delete all that, scratch all that. Let's start back over. What's on your mind recently, and what's front and center in your world? I know the grooming gang report came out. You just interviewed the citizen vigilante German author or director. So what's on your mind? Where do you want to start?
Well, that was really look. I'm not going to. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I've been quite heavily sort of attacked and derided for interviewing Uwe Boll, the director of and producer of Citizen Vigilante. But I was actually quite happy he came on my show. I mean, I've got to be honest. If somebody is willing to engage with me, I'm a pretty well-known white nationalist. I'm somebody who is probably quite dangerous to work with, especially if you're associated with Hollywood. And I was actually quite happy he came on the show. I thought he was very honest about why he made the film and what it meant to show. And I think a few people were, how can I say it? They were very critical of me having him on, but I think I was very fair.
Did you ask him the hard questions? I saw a bit of it. I saw you asking some of the hard questions that people were objecting to online.
Firstly, Adam, I don't think I've ever been rude to anyone who's come on my show. And
I don't English gentleman, always been an English gentleman, I've ever seen you.
I don't bring anyone on to drag them. And there's only been, I think, 2 guests that I've ever argued with.
EMJ.
One will make
Michael
Jones,
me happy. Yes, of course.
Because he offended me greatly by saying that Europeans had achieved nothing until they embraced Christianity, which was a manifest lie and complete historical bunk that can be disproven by the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, and if you wish to extend, I mean, obviously the people who ran ancient Egypt were obviously white, they had ginger hair, they had blue eyes, you know, these great empires, and even if you want to extend this to things like the Viking empires and, you know, early Germanic empires, I wasn't tolerating it. And the second guy was a libertarian, and that was more of a jokey debate where I got kind of annoyed by the idea that if capitalist firms controlled everything, we'd be better off. I just thought that was just manifestly wrong. But I don't invite anyone on my show to make a fool of them. And I certainly don't invite people on my show to get some kind of, you know, cheap super chat flurry by humiliating, because that would be very rude, and I'm not a rude person. Now, also, Uwe Boll is, firstly, a very kind man for coming on my show. But secondly, he's a German, and I'm not going to start asking him to discuss things that could get him arrested in his homeland. Simple as that. Now, he answered every question that we put to him. I think he was quite honest about them. And my assessment of the man is he's a typical man of his age and his generation who is starting to understand that there are problems in society. And what I've tried to explain to some of, what can I call them, some of the American white nationalists, is generally speaking, there is a pipeline to understanding Zionist and Jewish power. And that pipeline is, first you see a problem which is caused by an immigrant. At that point, something twigs in your head. this problem that I'm experiencing with this person is downstream of immigration. And all of a sudden you say, immigration is not good for the country. The next thing you understand is, if immigration continues, demographic change will accelerate. And if the problems you're experiencing now are this bad when you are a majority, imagine what they'll be like when you're a minority. Mm-hmm. And then the final question, or the final realization is, well, if all this is happening and the government aren't stopping it, who's behind this? Who are the people pulling the strings? Who are the people that are making this happen? And at that point, you get to the sort of things that you and I talk about. And I think that's a fair assessment. And I don't think, and this is where my difference is with some American white nationalists, I don't think we should castigate or humiliate people who are on that journey, but just aren't as far along as we are. And in my organization, I have dozens of very good friends that started off at Tommy Robinson rallies, asked too many questions, got thrown out, and now they're my close friends because the questions they were asking led them to Adam Green, Mark Collett, other people who speak the truth about these issues. And I feel that it's very unproductive to simply scream at anyone who is waking up. If you don't understand everything about the JQ, you're an idiot and you're a cuck and you're a rightoid, because that's not going to grow the movement. It's going to put people off ever growing and developing to where we are.
No, I agree. Yeah, he's clearly older. He's grown up with exposed to a whole lot different information. People did have some valid questions. I believe he made he made a documentary or movie before about the Holocaust before that. And did you ask him? Was it true about that actor? I guess the actor is a quarter Jewish. Not that really means anything.
Well, look, we did.
But he had a tattoo.
This is the interesting thing.
True? Yeah,
this is interesting. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Armie Hammer, the main actor, was an incredibly famous actor. Mm-hmm. He was the, name above the title star of The Lone Ranger. It was Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer, The Lone Ranger. It's a massive film. Didn't perform very well at the box office. I watched it. It was okay, but I just felt it was too long. It was one of those films where it should have been at, an hour and 40 minutes, and it seemed to go on for like nearly 3 hours. And it was far too convoluted for a kid's film about a cowboy and an Indian. It wasn't great. But Johnny Depp was very funny in it. Johnny Depp was excellent. And Armie Hammer wasn't bad in it. But the issue is, Armie Hammer had a little bit of a problem. He got sort of disgraced and couldn't get any work in Hollywood. And there's this big conspiracy theory that he was used specifically because he's this Jewish guy, et cetera, et cetera. But when we asked Uwe Boll, sort of, why did you pick Armie Hammer? He's like, well,
it's the only guy you could get.
Yeah, he's right? I didn't have that much money, and this guy's really famous, but he hadn't worked for a while. So I thought, I'll message him on Instagram because he might be desperate for an acting role. And I've heard that his publicist and his manager have disowned him. So he was like, would you like to be in my film? And Armie Hammer's like, my God, I'll be in any film. I'll be in anything, please.
He said he cried when he got the offer, that he hadn't had an offer in like 5 years or something.
Well, this is the thing. And I think sometimes people want to make something like, this is a big conspiracy theory. This man was chosen because of this. Da, 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 da. But I think in this case, what he said to me made sense. And, he could have turned around to me and said, well, we chose him because this guy, is a Jewish actor and we believe that Jews are... But he didn't say that. He was just like, look, I was desperate for a leading man, and this leading man hadn't worked for ages, and I tried my hand because I thought he'd be cheap, and he was, and we got him, and that's great. And I don't know. I mean, when it comes down to it, you either take the guy's word, and it sounded reasonable to me what he said. I've heard Armie Hammer talking about it, and he said virtually the same thing. So their stories like marry up.
So what's the theory? Why are people attacking you for this though? Is it like they're saying it's a Zionist movie to make us hate Muslims or to incite violence? So a clash between Christianity and Islam? Is that what it is?
I think unfortunately there are some people that, look, obviously Jewish power Zionist control are the key issues in terms of why many of these negative things are happening to us. But now, unless you are, to some people, unless you are constantly pushing the Palestine issue and only discussing these narrow issues, you're somehow cucking. And one of there's two reasons I've been attacked. Firstly, for having him on, and secondly, interestingly, one guy attacked me basically for talking about the grooming gangs because I described them as Muslim grooming gangs because they are Muslims. And apparently now, if you say this, you're somehow helping counter jihad and you're building Zionist power. And I reject that because I believe that there is a problem with, I have no problem with Muslims in Muslim parts of the world. I support the Palestinian cause. I support the Lebanese fighting back against Israel. I support Iran's fight against Israel. But I don't want Muslims here in Britain or in Europe. And we have a problem, yes, with Pakistani Muslims, but we also have a problem with Syrians, Afghans. The French and the Spanish have problems with Algerians and Moroccans. And I don't think describing these groups that operate out of mosques, that use specific Islamic language when they're denigrating their white victims, I don't think pointing out that there is an issue with Muslim immigration into Europe makes me a cuck or makes me someone who is pushing Zionism, because I don't think anyone really has, in England anyway, has exposed Jewish power as much as me. But just because I expose Jewish power doesn't mean I won't talk about other problems. And just because some people like Tommy Robinson take the discussion of Muslim immigration and use it to try and build Zionist power and support for Israel, just because somebody takes a real issue and then subverts the anger over that issue, doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to talk about that issue. And you've got to remember, it was myself and Nick Griffin in 2004 who were arrested as the first men in Britain to openly talk about the grooming scandal and try to expose it. So why I should give up on that now, I don't know. And I think all of this has sort of blown up and there's been quite a bit of drama about it. And I really don't see why Europeans should stop talking about this issue, especially considering it's not just an issue of sexual assault and grooming. We've also faced an issue of what can rightfully be called Islamic colonization of towns and cities all over Europe. You've seen it yourself when you've been here, but also we faced the issue of sort of this Wahhabist sect taking over mosques and promoting terrorism on European soil as well. Now, you can argue correctly that it was Jewish power that opened the gates. It was Jewish wars in the Middle East that drove many people from the Middle East into Europe. But that still doesn't change the fact that the Muslims who have come here do not live alongside European communities peacefully.
So they're mad because you're critical of Islam and linking it to the rape gangs. It sounds like they're sweeping to me. Like I'm critical of Islam's in Christianity and Judaism, all the Abrahamic religions, 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. They say the same thing to me when I'll criticize Christianity. They'll say, "Oh, that's Jewish to criticize Christianity," and now they're doing the same thing to you. It's Jewish to criticize Islam. Well, I don't think so. I criticize all three. I know the
also Adam, like you're. So one of the reasons I like Adam is because he does actually listen. And also he is historically literate. And one thing that I've tried to point out is that this issue of Muslims within Europe is not something that is new. It's not just a modern thing. There was an 800-year Islamic occupation of Spain. There was multiple invasions. Now, interestingly, who were the ones that funded those Islamic invasions of Spain? Well, again, it was Jews. You can look this up. If you look up who were the merchants that facilitated the Islamic occupation of Spain, they were Jews. Who were the ones that opened the gates of Toledo? It was the Jews. But that is sort of mirroring what's going on now. But this isn't something, what we're seeing now in the modern age, in the here and now, with Islamic colonization of places like Bradford, places like Dewsbury, large parts of London. There are 32 different boroughs in London, and there isn't a single London borough now where white British school children are a majority. We're a minority in every single borough of London, every one of the 32 boroughs. And some of them have been completely taken over by Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, and they control the power in those areas. And we know that's been facilitated by Zionists, by Israel Aid, by powerful Jewish lobbyists. And to me, that mirrors the occupation of Spain. But the occupation of Spain, who was it? Well, Muslims were the broom, but it was the Jews that facilitated it. And I think you know fair well, I think you'd probably be able to name the rabbi, I can't, but one very famous Israeli rabbi whose name slips my mind described, I think it was a rabbi, described Muslims as the broom that would sweep through Europe. And who wields the broom? We know that, but I don't think you can, or I don't think there's any good reason not to criticize, the Muslim colonization of places, Islamic terrorism, grooming gangs, etc., just because people like Tommy Robinson then subvert that criticism. We shouldn't stop being honest about things. And I also think some American white nationalists have become so obsessed with the issue of Palestine, and they've almost outsourced all of their agency to the Palestinians. They sort of they criticize everybody. Oh, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that. We should just sit, doing our podcasts, and we should criticize everybody else, do nothing. The only people that can save us are the Palestinians. And I think for white people to outsource their agency to another like that is very dangerous. Of course, we should support the Palestinians, but to outsource all our agency to another, I think is a bad thing. And I think there has been a retreat by certain white nationalists away from activism, away from real world activity, not all, and they are pinning their hopes to the Iranians, to the Lebanese, to the Palestinians. I think that's dangerous because although we should support them and cheer them on and say, look, we support your struggle against this Zionist terror, we, as a racial or collection of ethnic groups, should also be involved in that fight in our lands for the betterment of our people. We have agency ourselves.
I know. I saw. There's the Jewish girl that she laughed or smiled when she talked about the new rape gang report, and everybody was tweeting about her. She said something about how the report named, kind of vaguely blamed Islam or something for this. I don't think anybody's saying that the only problem with demographics in Europe is Islam is the problem. It's not just Islam. It's not all of it, we're saying all of Islam leads to rape gangs. But it is a major element in what's happening over. But tell me, so
well, look, it is a major element for several reasons. Firstly, it isn't just Pakistani Muslims. There are Afghan grooming gangs, there are Syrian grooming gangs. And the reason there is an Islamic component to grooming is because the girls that are picked as victims, who are overwhelmingly white British, are picked because they do not go to a mosque. They're not just picked for their race, they're picked because they do not go to a mosque. So in certain parts of Birmingham, mixed race black girls were picked, but it was because they didn't go to the mosque. And interestingly, the language used to denigrate these victims is specifically Islamic language. Some of the girls are racially abused. They're called white slags, white sluts, etc. But some of the girls are abused, and the term they use is kafir. They call them dirty non-believers. Now, at that point, this ceases to be solely a racial or ethnic issue, and you do get the issue of religion seeping in. What's more, and this is another bone of contention with people who don't understand this, it's not just the men, the Muslim men who are involved in the grooming. The wider Muslim communities defend those men cover up for them and facilitate this. And even when these men are found out, their wives defend them on the grounds that their victims are non-believers, so shouldn't be believed, shouldn't be taken seriously. They should basically be shunned. So there is both. You could argue there's a racial element to this, you could argue there's an ethnic element, but there's certainly also some form of religious element with the non-believer stuff. And I don't think we should stop talking about this just because of what's going on in the Middle East. I'm not castigating Iranians in Iran, I'm not castigating Palestinians in Palestine or Syrians in Syria, but I am talking about a serious issue which does have a religious component, which is very, very prevalent, not just in Britain, but in other European countries. And the problem with the grooming issue is it's been going on for so long, it's still going on, it's still being covered up, it's still taking place. And as of this point now, there has never been a full government inquiry into it. So figures of girls involved, and I always say over 100,000 girls have been, groomed, sexually assaulted, raped, trafficked, etc. But that's the lowball number. There have been MPs that have stated it could be as high as 1 million girls, because this has been going on since the 1970s. It's 2026 now. This has been going on since the 70s. It's sort of 4 to 5 decades of very, very organized sexual abuse. As I said, it's not random men going and pinching someone's bum or doing something on the spur of the moment. It's organized. It takes place through networks of taxi ranks, takeaways, and it is covered.
It's part of a larger crime and drug and gang activity too, right?
Yeah,
it's not like they're only doing rape gangs. They're also we're talking about gangs and criminals and doing drug dealing and all types of other stuff too, right?
Yeah, and what I'm really trying to say is that it's not just the Muslims then who covered it up. It's also the state. The state, especially the Labour Party, have been very complicit in this, because the Labour Party has aggressively, well, both parties have, but both parties have brought in huge numbers of migrants. But the Labour Party have successfully turned those migrants into, up until very recently, very loyal voting blocs, which could be relied upon. Because these people organise through their mosques, you will have seen footage of Labour politicians going into mosques and giving speeches, and the leaders in these mosques then endorse the Labour politician and say, look, our mosque endorses this politician. And then you know that every adult in the area who attends that mosque is basically going to go out and vote for that particular Labour candidate. And here's the issue, Adam. And this is something you are correct about, and I've got to give you this. When you criticize Christianity, Christianity doesn't do this. You would never have a church open up and then they endorse a candidate because that candidate is pro-white or offers the white community something. The church it's non-political, it's multiracial, it's universalist. And you are right about this. But these mosques are pro-Muslim, highly politicized, community-based, and they wield absolute power in these particular communities.
Bring us up to speed. What are some of your other insights into the grooming gang reports? And wasn't there also some guy in England stabbed by a migrant and then he got arrested as he bled out, and there were protests over that too?
Well, look, I'll talk about that. That's the Henry Novak case. Now, this is one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of Tommy Robinson and why me and him don't get on. You see, I don't think that it's just Muslims that need to go. I'm not a counter-jihadist. I'm not somebody who's just banging on about Muslims. I want Britain to be a homogenous ethno-state, 95% plus white British, with the ethnic minorities that remain overwhelmingly to be fellow Europeans who are essentially close cousins in terms of, race and ethnicity. Now, Henry Novak was actually stabbed by a Sikh, and the Sikh, his name was Vikram Digwa, and the Sikh was carrying two knives, a large 21 centimeters. Have I got my metal ruler here? I can't see it. Oh, I have. So it's important to know how long 21 centimeters is. So 21 centimeters is, it's between my two fingers, basically, between there and there. That's 21 centimeters. So it's a sizable dagger. And that dagger was called a Shasta. He also carried with him what's called a kirpan, which is a smaller blade concealed under his clothes. The Shasta dagger was actually on a belt in a sheath, publicly visible. So this guy's walking down the street at night, wearing these Sikh robes, turban on his head, dagger on show, hidden knife underneath his clothes. And Henry Novak's walking down the street. He's had one beer. He's under the legal driving limit, so he wasn't drunk by any means. He's chatting to his friends, sending texts and recording little videos for Snapchat. Vikram Digra approaches him, pulls out the larger Shasta blade, stabs him 4 times, once straight through the rib cage, and 3 times as Henry Novak turned and tried to run and escape. So 3 of the stab wounds, 2 to the back of his legs and 1 to his abdomen, were wounds that were inflicted when Henry was escaping. So Henry then is begging for his life. He also is slashed at some point across his chin by Henry Novak. The police are called because he's screaming, crying. I'm dying. I've been stabbed. The police arrived. Vikram Digra pulls off his turban, messes up his hair. The police arrive. The police say, what's going on here? The Sikh says, I've been racially assaulted. This guy was being racist towards me. Henry Novak's lying on the floor, bleeding to death, screaming, I've been stabbed. Please help me. The police officer says, I don't think you have, mate, and proceeds to arrest him for racially assaulting the Sikh, even though the white boy is lying there dying from a stab wound. And the next thing that happens is Henry Novak, he begins bleeding out, he's coughing, he slips into unconsciousness in the handcuffs. The police then are like, what's going on? They try to resuscitate him, but sadly he passes away. His last experience in this world was being arrested by the British police for committing a racial assault that he never committed. Because, and we'll get to this. So they then arrest Vikram Digwa. Vikram Digwa basically comes up with this complete nonsense story that he was assaulted. The knife isn't at the scene because Vikram Digwa's mother has turned up, taken it away and hidden it in the house. He then gets put in the police van with his brother, who's also turned up at the scene. The police record him in Punjabi, speaking in Punjabi to his brother, because this is all his sort of deception, saying, look, we've got to lie, we've got to say like this was racially motivated, etc. That's the way I'm going to get off this. It was self-defense. And the police at this time are like, well, what's going on? They search him. They find that not only has he murdered Henry Novak, but he stole Henry's phone. And it all starts to unravel then for Vikram Digwa. But the question you're asking is, how has all of this come about? Well, this is the shocking thing. There are 3 pieces of policy that you need to understand when talking about this case. Now, the first piece of policy is, and I want to get this correct. So it's the Criminal Justice Act 1988. So in 1988, a piece of policy was passed called the Criminal Justice Act. And the Criminal Justice Act banned the carrying of bladed or pointed articles, but made an exception for Sikhs because they're allowed to carry those weapons as part of their religious practices. That's the first thing. Then and I want to get this correct as well, 2019, another act was passed called the Offensive Weapons Act. That reinforced this exception and allowed Sikhs to also possess, carry, gift, and use at religious ceremonies larger curved blades, which were banned for everyone else under the Offensive Weapons Act. And finally, you'll be asking, why did the police take the word of Vikram Digwa, the killer, over the word of the victim who was dying on the floor? Well, that's because of another piece of policy. And that piece of policy is known as the Race Action Plan. Now, you can look this up online. The Race Action Plan is freely available. That is a document that was rolled out to police forces in 2023 and 2024. It was initially released in draft form in 2022. And this is another piece of government. It's not actual policy. It's more sort of like legislation for police, which states that everything police must do must be actioned through an anti-racist lens. So if police officers receive a report of something that was racially motivated, that must take priority over anything else that's happening at the scene of a crime. So if you're bleeding to death and there's a black guy saying, this guy was racist, the police legally must prioritize the claim of racism over saving your life. And you might think that's absurd, and you might think I'm misreading it, but I want to quote you something, because I'm not misreading this. Donna Jones, the police and crime commissioner for the constabulary where this crime took place, said this: the inspectorate should examine the training provided to frontline officers responding to knife crime incidents, including the application of immediate first aid and the physiological presentation of serious internal bleeding. The advocacy and regularity of that training will also be reviewed, and how officers are trained to triage competing accounts at the scene of a violent incident, specifically whether the provision of immediate medical assistance is treated as an unconditional duty that operates independently of any assessment of culpability. So what they're saying is, currently, under active legislation, the provision of life-saving medical care currently takes second place if there is a claim of racism. Now, the final thing I'll say before you can ask me any questions is this: which political party was responsible for the Criminal Justice Act 1988, the Offensive Weapons Act 2019, and the Race Action Plan? Which political party do you think it was?
Well, normally people would think it would be the left, but you're asking as if it's clearly the right, the conservatives.
It's the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party put all of those pieces of legislation in place. And now their leader, the Nigerian Kemi Badenoch, is going around stating that the Conservatives will solve this problem. The Conservatives were the architect of this problem in its entirety. So here you have a white boy viciously murdered for no reason by a Sikh. You have a false claim of racism. You have the police arresting the white boy at the scene and allowing him to bleed out in handcuffs because they have to prioritize the Sikh's false claim of racism. And finally, you find out that every piece of policy that has led to that occurring was all passed by so-called conservatives. And that, in a nutshell, is why Britain is completely screwed. And that's why I'm certainly not a counter-jihadist, because I understand that although Islam is a problem in Britain, so is Sikhism, so is Hinduism. We don't want Afro-Caribbeans here. We don't want these people here because they pose a threat to our people. And different ethnic groups present different threats to our people. And that's why I want Britain to be overwhelmingly an ethnically homogenous country run by white Britons to the benefit of white Britons.
Okay, so we got the Rate Game report. We got another high-profile murder. Oh yeah, I meant to ask too. Where did this happen? How old was the guy and the kid, Novak? And the was it a female police that arrested him? And was she white?
It was a male and female officer. It happened in Southampton. I believe Henry Novak was, I think, 18 years of age when it happened. And I think Vikram Digwa was either 21 or 22 at the time the crime took place. And they didn't charge Vikram Digwa with any racially aggravated offense. And the judge passed what has been described as a lenient sentence. He got a life sentence with, I think it was a minimum term of 21 years in jail. And he got that minimum term, which was lower than it should have been, because the judge said that Digwa had good legal reason for carrying the knife on the night of the murder, simply because he was a Sikh. So this is how parties like the Conservative Party create a system of two-tier justice that places white Britons at the bottom of the racial totem pole, meaning that we are the ones that are discriminated against.
So are they changing that law now? They're going to ban these ceremonial religious swords?
I very much doubt it.
So they'll disarm and ban all weapons for all the white Britons, and then make exceptions for the foreigners even after they stab somebody. That's great. That was gonna be my next question. Okay, so now we got the big. The government has legitimized the mass gang rape problem. We've got another recent attack amongst many. The story sounds so similar to Carmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf that just happened over here too. Same situation. So what is going to come of it? Is there more protests, more signups, new politicians, like any legal changes, or is all of this just going to be in vain? What do you think?
I think it's going to be largely in vain. I think what happens in cases like this is you end up in a situation where the Conservative Party are now calling for change. Kemi Badenoch is calling for change. Most people, because this happened under the Labour government, believe it's a Labour problem. And this is how politicians con people. They set up an illusory political divide between right and left. Both parties pass almost identical policy, and they both blame each other for the problems they jointly created. And the public bounce blindly between those two parties. And now you will get people saying, well, I'm voting Conservative next time because of what happened to Henry Novak. And they haven't got a clue that it was actually Conservative Party policy that brought this about. But instead they blame Labour because it happened in a similar way that, Conservatives are often seen as the solution to mass immigration, yet it was Boris Johnson's Conservative administration that holds the record for the highest net migration in history at 944,000 people coming to Britain and staying here. So that's 944,000 net, which is a crazy, crazy figure. But unfortunately, the British people are not very astute.
They're not angry enough. It hasn't gotten bad enough, apparently. I don't hear. It's just having a report that said, the report did say 250,000, right? 250,000. Do people? I feel like I'm worried people are just going to hear that number and think, oh, that's a big number, big statistic, and not humanize what that means, how devastating and awful each one of those might be if that was your daughter or your sister.
Look, you see, this is the crazy thing. And I hear people saying this, how could it be 250,000? Well, let me explain how it could be 250,000. It's been taking place over about a 50-year period, as we said earlier. So when you look at 250,000, it's a big figure. But once you divide it by 50, it's only on average 5,000 cases a year. And there have been articles published in the mainstream media saying in single years, there have been over 20,000 reports of crimes related to grooming and organized sexual assault. And look, the reason this is such a big issue, and I really want to hammer this home, I understand that you have people from, say, African communities, etc., that commit sexual assaults. But and this doesn't diminish how terrible those crimes are, but those crimes happen on an ad hoc, almost random basis. The men go out there, they're in a certain mood, they see something that triggers them, they do something that they absolutely shouldn't do. But these grooming gangs are an organized network set up on an almost community-wide basis to commit these assaults specifically on a target group that is outside of the community. So you will have black men walk up to black women and sexually assault them on the tube, whereas these were targeted offenses at people who were outside of the communities that were carrying out the criminality. And because of that, and because of the organized nature, it's almost like, to draw an analogy, generally speaking, organized crime is seen as worse than opportunistic crime because it is organized on a business-like level, which makes it more nefarious. These sexual assaults were organized in the same way as an organized crime network, almost like a sexual mafia, if you like.
Did you also see the, I think it was in Sweden at the World Cup, a soccer fan got his head stomped in by some Africans after they were fighting over or celebrating the goal that was scored? Speaking of that, have you been watching any World Cup? Are you a soccer hooligan type of Englishman? England's about to play Norway, I think, on Saturday.
Is that today?
Have you been seeing this Viking dude from Norway?
I can tell you this, Adam, and this is a bit shameful, but it's also a bit of a sad story. When I was a young man, I used to love going out and watching England football. It was a spectacle. You'd go to the pub with your friends, you'd have some beer, you'd jump around. England scored, you'd go wild. If they won, you'd celebrate. It was absolutely wonderful. Okay. And I used to support England. And they had the odd black player, and I could let that slide. But I stopped supporting them around the BLM riots because the England team began taking the knee to
George Floyd?
Yeah. And when they did this, they, when they started taking the knee, I gave up. I said, look, it's one thing having, and then this is a sad thing, but I want to be honest. I want to be honest about this. Basically, when it comes down to it, when we were young, it seemed like the odd black player who played for England took real pride in playing for England. Okay. And you looked at it and you were like, well, it doesn't define us ethnically. FIFA aren't the arbiters of who is English and who isn't. It's just a football match. But now we have this situation where the team is almost totally dominated by ethnic minority groups who aren't English. And they push this BLM narrative down our throat. They take the knee and all of that. And I just backed out. And I can't be enthusiastic about a team that pushes an anti-white narrative. If it was just about playing football and having a beer, that's one thing, but it stopped being about that. And this World Cup, I think it's one of the, I haven't watched a World Cup match or an international match since they started taking the knee, but I have heard comically that Donald Trump had to get involved somehow in it and interfere for the American team, which I found comical. But other than that, I haven't really heard much about it.
Yeah, he reversed a red card for a U.S. player, apparently. Yeah. But also, have you been seeing, there's a whole bunch of theories, too, about, like, Zionist and refs and the game with Argentina and
I've not really been following it. To me, it's a little bit bread and circuses. Yeah. And as I said, I
didn't watch the game.
Cashed out my chips. But if there has been Zionist influence, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me. And there are certain
So are you rooting
teams...
for the Viking, Harland in Norway against the home country, like I am? I'm conflicted, man. I'm part Norwegian. I'm part English, part Scottish, part German. But the English and the Norway, I'm going with the Viking side over England.
I when it comes down to it, I'm pretty uninterested. I don't really care. I don't really care. My one concern would be if England did win, I can imagine the government using it as sort of like, well, this is a mandate for multiculturalism. England have won the World Cup and it's the most multicultural team ever. Fantastic. You know, you all have to celebrate now because this is the future of England and we couldn't play football without these people. So, woohoo, there we go. That's always a concern because that's how the government does it. I mean, if you look at the French team, is there a single ethnic Frenchman in the French team anymore? I mean, you could pull up a picture and we could have a look.
I know it's very, very diverse. I've seen the memes, like even before this World Cup, of showing the different countries' teams, and it's a lot of Africans in the European countries. That's for sure. But yeah, that's what's so cool is this Viking dude from he lives in England too. Wait, Harland. You haven't seen the dude with the big Viking guy that's crushing?
Of course I have.
He's knocking guys over. He's scoring all these goals. He's like the best goal scorer ever.
If it's who I think it is, he plays Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
Yeah, he plays for Manchester City, or used to, in England, and he's one of the highest goal scorers in the English Premiership.
He's the best.
I'll just have a look at this because English Premier League is one of the best leagues in the world. Erling Haaland, English Premier League.
Haaland. We're saying it wrong. Holland. It's Holland.
36 goals and 30.
He was born in Leeds.
He set the new record for the highest number of goals in a Premier League season with 52 goals in 53 appearances.
Yeah, he's only 25 too. He's the best. I watched him the other day. He scored 9 goals against Honduras, and he literally made them all cry. I'm hoping he's going all the way. He's got more World Cup goals. I think he's got 7 in like 4 games or something like that. That's more goals than all of Norway has had in all of history in the World Cup.
Look, I do know a little bit about football, not a huge amount. But when you have a talismanic player like Haaland, I believe he can carry them to victory. And when you've got a player like that, what tends to happen is the entire other team ends up trying to neutralize that one player, which ends up being fruitless because then all of his team, break through. And I think if Norway are playing England have been scoring goals, but they have also been very vulnerable in their defense, and they've conceded a lot of goals. So far, I know this sounds like an obvious thing, but they've only got through because they've scored more goals than they've let in, and that's an obvious point. To get through, you have to score more goals than you let in. But the issue is, a solid team will be keeping clean sheets. They won't be conceding goals. And England have conceded an awful lot of goals, which makes them very vulnerable when you have a striker of that quality. And I think if he's on top form, he will pick the England defence apart, which then puts increasing pressure on the England forwards to compensate for the poorer defence. They nearly bowed out against Mexico. They had a shaky start against Croatia. I think Norway are probably the favourites when they meet. So you probably won't be disappointed is what I'm saying, Adam.
All right, we got one last topic segment I want to talk about with Mark, and then we will go through the power chats that have been coming through. Candace Owens, the Charlie Kirk trial. Have you been keeping up with the latest conspiracy mystery dramas going on
I wanted to talk to you about this, Adam, but I didn't want to ruin your day. But I noticed that you had been doing battle with the Flat Earthers and other groups at one point, which made me laugh. And I know that you don't really entertain the conspiracy theorists. I think you did you got kind of annoyed at them. I mean, it's something that I've had a bit of a problem with myself as well. I know that you've sort of clapped back against the people who say we didn't land on the moon. But Candace Owens, she does say some good stuff, but she's a little bit too prone to going down this kooky road of absolute crazy nonsense. And she'll jump on anything which kind of undermines her own points. I think she went down this road of saying that the French president's wife is a tranny or something like that. And it's all pretty silly, if you ask me. And I think the Charlie Kirk thing is interesting because it's funny that everyone thinks it's Israel. But in this case, I've not seen anything that convinces me it is Israel. And as soon as it happened, I said, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, all my chips would be on the fact that it was some crazy troon who, opened fire on him because he felt that he was going to do something to the trans community. And he was going to be sort of Hitler 2.0. And
that's what I thought.
Gonna,
that was my first thought too.
That's what I said straight away.
And now his furry boyfriend, they just played in court his interrogation where he said, yeah, he did it. He confessed to it. So all the conspiracy theorists that have been harassing Charlie's wife like evil psychopaths, accusing her of murder. Candace Owens, who I think has just been jealous of Erica, Charlie choosing Erica over her, going for the blonde hair, blue-eyed.
I didn't find Erica particularly attractive. I mean, I'm not besmirching her or anything, but she had kind of like a square-looking.
You'd prefer Candace?
I prefer neither. I prefer neither. They're just not my sort of time. I have like several types, if you like, but neither are the types. And I also
like the girl on Twitter that's filming herself walking around England with all the migrants. And did you see that girl?
No, you'd have to show me. I'd have to rate. I'm not getting into rating them out. I'm not doing that. But I also, what made me dislike Erica Kirk is I thought her behavior after her husband's death was a little bit shameless. And if my wife had just been assassinated, I don't think I'd be doing what looked like the big song and dance media tour. She looked like she was embracing the moment a little too much for a bereaved partner. And that was something I found slightly uncomfortable.
She should have not done any interviews. She shouldn't have spoken out. She should have ran and hid and been by herself.
No. I'm not saying she shouldn't have done any interviews, because obviously if your partner dies in such a horrible way, if your husband or wife dies in such a horrible way, and it is a genuine thing that is ideological and you want to talk about it, I understand that. I understand that to a great degree. Okay. And I'm not mocking her. It was the manner in which she spoke. She didn't seem, and I've never lost,
Yeah, it's hard. She's in a hard position.
Yeah, she's in a hard position. But there was something about it that just felt slightly off to me. And because of that, I felt kind of uncomfortable with the way she acted after the loss of her husband. And I'm not saying, as I say, I don't know. I could be off the mark. I don't know what the chat thinks.
Awkward, grieving. You don't know. It's unfair to put her under the microscope, I think, and scrutinize her for every little thing.
Maybe it is. Maybe you're right, mate. Maybe
I
should take that back. That back. I don't know. But certain things made me feel slightly uncomfortable. And I'll elaborate for people. One of my hobbies, I've got several hobbies, but one of my hobbies is I do like watching sort of crime documentaries. I do like watching real life crime, police interrogations.
So does all of Candace's followers.
It was one of my favorites. Is
True crime drama
called Explore With Us, and it shows sort of real life crimes from the moment people are arrested on body cam right through their interview process. And one thing I'll say is, when people act in a particular manner, it does raise the odd red flag. And she has done a couple of things that just sort of made me think, well, after everything I've seen, a couple of things just didn't sit right. Now, I might be off the mark here.
Was it the sparkly pants and like the the fire show at the Charlie Memorial? That's mostly what I saw people criticizing.
I don't know. I just found some of the on-stage stuff. There was a point where she seemed to be dancing and being very showy. And
with Trump, I think Trump put his arm around her and hugged her.
There seemed to be a lot of pageantry, and I know that when I've lost family members, I wouldn't be up on stage dancing. Especially when because look, whatever anyone thinks of Charlie.
Hold on, Mark. Hold on. Lots of people though, like your friend dies, your brother dies, they go up. They give their speech. They tell a funny story. They laugh. They say something funny he did. Oh, he was so like that. He was so great. I think that's all normal, common stuff. Like, I love how they'll try to pick up every little, anomaly or nuance or facial expression or body expression on Erica and all of Charlie's friends. But then they'll ignore the vast evidence that it was this guy that shot him.
Well, look, as I said, I don't, there was a couple of things that I saw that made me sort of feel that something was slightly off. However, I am more than willing to defer to your expertise on this. If you've seen more and you do make some good points, and obviously I don't want to sit here tonight and sort of like argue with you about it. And like, obviously at some point there may well be a case where she was awkward, where she wasn't.
I'll tell you the real awkward part was, it's weird. It's kind of weird. I'm not saying this means this is proof she did it by any means, but it's just a little, not everybody would film themselves over the open casket, like crying and say goodbye. That was a little out of the ordinary. Not that it's suspicious. I feel like, if she killed him, maybe she'd be less likely to do something. Less likely, more cognizant of not trying to ever.
In no way am I stating that she had anything to do with his murder.
Yeah.
I don't think she had anything to do with it. But when it did happen, she didn't exactly seem like the grieving wife that I would have expected to see. I don't think that she was involved in his murder. I don't think there was a conspiracy that involved her, but there was several of what I would call red flags, and there was more than one. Now, let me explain myself, because I don't want to be seen as disrespectful to anyone, especially not a grieving widow. But when you have body language experts, they will all say that any individual tell in itself should not be read into exclusively. But body language experts look for what they call clusters. So if somebody's being blinking like rapidly like that is a sign of being deceptive. But blinking in itself as a one-off would not be flagged by a body language expert, because you might just have something in your eye. But if you were, say, blinking, looking away from the interviewer, stuttering, and crossing your arms all at the same time, they would say that was a cluster of body language that would all point towards deceptiveness. And if you're doing one of those things, you might cross your arms because you're cold. But if you cross your arms, you're blinking, you're looking away, and you're stuttering, they'd say, well, that's 4 tells all at the same time. It's a cluster. This could indicate deceptiveness. And because she did more than one thing that was pointed out at the time, I don't believe she was in any way involved in the murder, but she did seem slightly too comfortable for somebody who was meant to have just lost her husband and the father of her children. And that made me feel as if something was slightly off.
And I think that could easily be explained by she's just like trying to stay strong for the cameras.
She might be.
Keep her composure in front of her children. It's...
And look, everyone deals with grief differently. There are people who, when a family member dies, they start telling awkward jokes about that family member because that's their way of processing it. There's other people who break down and fall on the floor and cry. And, I'm not telling people how they should grieve, but there were just a couple of things that I felt didn't seem right.
Yeah.
But
she could have, if she could have done things a little differently, maybe there wouldn't have been so many people like trying to dig into conspiracies. I see what you're saying. She didn't make it completely. She didn't do herself too many favors. We'll put it that way, lightly. Not that it's her fault and she deserves.
No, she didn't do
a little
herself
upset. Mark, chat says Erica's an Aryan goddess. Erica is white excellence. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm
Candace,
45
and
now,
how about
so
just
I'm
Candace
more of a
and,
MILF chaser. So I'd be chasing Anna Kaspari, and now she's on her redemption arc.
Yeah, the blonder she gets, the better she gets, right? But no, we have a serious problem, especially in America, Mark. The low IQ anti-Semitism mixed in with the kooky, delusional distraction conspiracies. Like, look what Candace is like: flat Earth and space is fake, and Book of Enoch, and UFOs are fallen angels, and they're drinking baby blood, and everybody's worshiping the devil, and it's Satanist and demons running everything. It's
Adam,
a serious problem.
Can I ask you something? they may well be drinking baby blood. And the reason I say this, wait, don't flinch until I'm watching your body language, boyo. Don't flinch until you've heard me out. Have you heard of this breaking case in Israel where a particular Orthodox community was carrying out those kind of rituals? And it's massive news in Israel at the moment.
I had not seen that. No, is that just today?
No, this was I nearly wrote an article about it, but most of the news reports and documentaries are in Hebrew. Let me just give me 2 seconds. What was the recent case in Israel where a highly religious sect of Jews was exposed for dark rituals involving murder?
But these people are taking it to a level
involving high-profile investigations into ultra-Orthodox or extremist Jewish sects in Israel that involve horrific instances of abuse, coercion, and covered-up murders. There's several of them, and if you look into this.
I didn't hear you say drinking blood though as a part of like religious rituals.
Well, they have been. They called them dark rituals.
How about this? The proof that everybody's doing, like we had the Epstein files. There's plenty of material there to scrutinize, but then all the same usual suspects take it into kooky land that Epstein is eating beef jerky, which is secretly baby meat. He's on a full-time diet of baby meat, or he's got a Baal bank account, and they're all secret Baal worshipers. There's no Baal worshipers. They worship Yahweh. If we're talking Jews, they worship Yahweh, is the God they worship. So, I mean, like those type of things, or just the demons who run everything. Like Tucker gets attacked by a demon, and everybody's secret Satanist when they're actually.
Well, no, I'm not saying that, Adam, but I am saying
Yahweh.
Something has just broken in Israel, which is really big news over there, and it was actually Orthodox. The Israeli investigative documentary series Havaz Hanistar, called The Hidden Rabbi, exposed Shuvu Bonim extremist sect, revealing how it utilized, they're saying modesty patrols, but there's more to it than that. And it's actually got all the way to the Knesset. You need to look into this because I think
it sounds like some weird extremist group that's being, investigated and prosecuted. Like drinking blood in Judaism is prohibited.
Well, I'm just saying there was some weird stuff going on. Whether it was actually
that's
drinking
why they have
blood,
a problem with Christianity is because they drink the blood of Jesus. So that's like one of the things in Judaism.
I'm just saying there was something that broke recently in Israel, which I think you'd be interested in, and it did point towards some very strange ritual practices within ultra-Orthodox communities. But it wasn't Jewish on Gentile crime. It was Jewish on Jewish crime, which is a slightly different dynamic. But look, that aside, I will say this. You are 100% correct. Once you start marrying legitimate criticism of Israel and legitimate criticism of Jewish power through things such as control of the media, control of campaign finance, with the earth is flat, and all that nonsense, you reduce.
They're Khazarians. That's another big one, the major one.
They're not even
Jews. They're not real Jews that follow the Torah. They're fake Khazarian Jews that don't follow the Torah, that worship the devil. Like that's just completely missing the mark. And so many people do it.
Look, and I am 100% with you on this. I'm 100% with you. And I do believe it's what I call muddying the water. So if I say to somebody, look, this particular group of Jews is overrepresented in terms of parliamentary lobbying, and they repeatedly lobby for two things: open borders in England and an ethno-state for Jews in Israel. This is a great hypocrisy. That makes sense. If then I say, but also the earth is flat and there's a weather control machine like Ming the Merciless had in the 1977 Flash Gordon film, and you have to also believe in those things too, that kind of muddies the water and makes my earlier, more legitimate points somewhat toxic. And I agree with you on that. And you were actually doing a stream the other night, and I don't always watch your streams. I'm not going to claim that every night I tune in, but I was tapping away trying to get your attention in the chat because you were arguing with these flat earther types, and I'm like, Adam, you are right, it is I, Mark from England, your good friend, keep the good fight going, brother. And I was in your chat cheering you on because we want to be taken seriously, and we don't want our legitimate points to be reduced to kind of conspiracy of the week fodder, which is then, replaced next week by some David Icke trash about Saturn being Satan's broadcasting station, because at that point or shape-shifting lizards, because at that point you've reduced everything we believe in to basically comedy fodder, and it's embarrassing. So I am with
it's
you,
not
mate.
just the David Icke thing now. Like all the David Icke, it's reptilians and demons and that type of thing. That has taken over like all of right-wing podcast world, from Joe Rogan to Tucker Carlson to Alex Jones to all of them are now towing that line. And I'll have people push back on me. I'll call out low IQ anti-Semitism or kosher distraction conspiracies. Even a guest who you just had on very recently counter-signaled that and tried to say it's some op to have standards on wanting to have legitimate criticisms. I knew you would agree. You've always agreed. We've always talked about the low IQ anti-Semitism and conspiracies being a problem and counterproductive. But also, I think you did a show with CTE brain UFC fighter Jake Shields. He keeps attacking me over and over again. He'll have Flat Earth Dave on, a Jewish guy, promoting Flat Earth and mountains are like giant bones or some shit. And then say, him and Dan Bilzerian will say, there's no such thing as low IQ anti-Semitism. Anybody trying to have standards and have credibility and legitimate arguments, that's a Jew op to say there's low IQ anti-Semitism.
Well, look, I really like Jake Shields and I get on with him really well, but I will say this. I am someone who always attempts to stick to things that I can completely justify. And I totally reject the flat earth nonsense for a number of reasons. And that flat earth Dave, who is a Jew, David Weiss, I believe his name is, all of this nonsense. They took them to Antarctica. They showed them the 24-hour sun. You don't have to go to Antarctica to see the 24-hour sun. You can go to the tip of South America and it's pretty much the same. There are enough visual instances of things you can see that basically prove we live on a globe. I think the flat earth thing is used to basically try and make us all into a laughing stock, and I've rejected that, but I've been attacked for that as well. I mean, I sometimes feel, Adam, and I'm not looking for anyone's sympathy. I don't, it's part of the course for me, but
I sympathize.
I feel like I'm a bit of a punching bag because I say, well, hey, look, there's these Muslim grooming gangs and sort of Islamic colonization of parts of Britain that I don't like. I get told to shut up about that. Well, I don't believe in flat earth. Shut up. Are you an op? And then finally I'll say something like, well, but I do think, Jews have a really negative effect on Western societies. And then another group of people tell me to shut up. And I feel I'm kind of like walking this tightrope and everyone's throwing like bricks at me, trying to knock me off. But I do believe in the things I talk about, and I don't want to ever reduce them to some kind of comedy sideshow. And I think Candace Owens is one of the worst for that. And look, Nick Fuentes doesn't like me. I'm not his biggest fan, but I will give Nick his due. Nick doesn't slip into this sort of Joe Rogan conspiracy comedy show, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, I knew that was your take, but it's such a serious problem. Like, we've got serious issues going on that we know and we can prove, and instead it's like it's taken over the internet. All the most viral stuff, I don't know if it's just the grift or the bots or everybody's retarded, but the dumber the conspiracy is, the more popular it is. The more, discredited some influencer is and being wrong about things, the more followers they end up having.
Do you want to know how you can prove what we're saying categorically, instantly? You can make a flat earth documentary right now, put it on YouTube, it's monetized, and you can find it. I'm completely banned from YouTube for producing documentaries like the Jewish role in the porn industry and Israel's role in mass immigration into Europe. Those documentaries are completely banned, but you can find countless flat earth documentaries on there. If the earth was flat, it would be illegal to talk about it. You wouldn't be making monetized YouTube videos. The West is controlled by powerful Jewish oligarchs. That's why you're not allowed to talk about it. You can go to jail in Germany for discussing Jewish power or questioning the Holocaust. No one goes to jail for saying the earth is flat. You just get laughed at because you're a retard.
Mm-hmm. I saw I was going around the other day, all the Patriot Front accounts and anybody talking about Patriot Front got banned from Twitter. Your whole crew has been banned from Twitter. It's weird. Elon acts like he's like, oh, citizen vigilante and rape gangs and replacement. It's like he's saying all these things, but then you guys are all systemically banned. Patriot Front is. The guys in Australia all are. Pretty hypocritical.
The guys
and
in
it's
the
fake.
Nordic
Meanwhile,
countries.
Candace and Ian Carroll, they blow up at tens of thousands of likes. And then if we disagree with their slop, their conspiracy slop, they say we're feds. We're getting paid $7,000. Excuse me, you've been talking about rape gangs and Jewish power for, I don't know, 20-something years probably.
25,
I've been doing it for a
years.
decade. These people just show up after October 7th or COVID and act like they're the ones that are going to dictate what the litmus tests are and who's a fed and what's real and what's not and stuff. We've been taking the lunatics are running the asylum, dude. They've been propped up. We're all systemically suppressed and banned and gatekept. They're propped up, and now they got everybody in complete idiocracy world.
Yeah, look, Adam, I completely agree. And I think what they want to reduce our talking points to is a situation where they're on the same level as the kookiest conspiracy theories. Because at that point, oh, well, that's just another silly conspiracy theory. Isn't it funny? La, la, la. We'll all laugh at it and move on to the next thing. And that to me is something that doesn't work. I mean, I've spoken really, as an ethno-nationalist, there are two overriding. Look, I've got a Substack at the moment. And if anyone wants to read more about what I talk about, I've got 3 articles on there explaining the Henry Novak case. I've got a lengthy article explaining my position on Palestine and ethno-nationalism. I've got articles on there talking about all manner of things. You can check that out, and it's all free. There's no paywall. And if you'd like to help me financially by becoming a paid subscriber, I'd really appreciate that, because it's hard work doing what we do. But here's the thing. When it comes down to it, we don't want our issues, which are legitimate issues, being turned into some kind of laughing
clown
stock.
show.
Yeah, that's it. And when it comes down to it, what we talk about is important. And I want to keep the Candace Owens stuff separate or separated from what we do. Simple as that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is going on with Patriotic Alternative lately?
Well, we've just had our summer camp. That was very good. A bit rainy because it was in a rainy part of England, but it was a very good weekend. It was really nice. We had lots of families there, over 30 children this year, toasting marshmallows over fire pits, cooking hot dogs, going hiking, all very, very live music, all very, very wholesome stuff.
It was a camp out, you said, or a retreat?
Yeah. We have like nearly 200 people, several dozen families, all out camping in the English countryside. We go hiking, we have barbecues, we have live music, we toast marshmallows over giant fire pits. It's a really, really wholesome weekend that's family focused. And these are the kind of things we do. We build communities, we advocate for the good of our people. And on the 8th of August, we're gearing up for a White Lives Matter event on Indigenous Peoples Day in remembrance of Henry Novak.
How's Sam doing? Sam that was in jail.
You should get Sam on. He's back
I followed him and he won't follow me back.
He's working so hard. Sam is one of my best friends. I'll get him on with you, Adam. I need your Telegram is what I need. I need a way to contact you quickly. Because at the moment I've only got
that's
you.
not a way. I don't do Telegram on my phone. It's only on my old phone and on my desktops. I don't have it on my
because at the moment we're only in email contact. But I'll get you in touch with Sam.
Email's the best way. We got you on email.
We
lost touch for a while because we used to always communicate on Skype, and then Skype like ended or something.
Skype became Teams, and lots of people left it, and it was basically became crap.
Yep. All right, let's hit these power chats. You should be able to hear them. I'll get these turned on. We'll get some questions. Hear what you guys have to say. That should pop up in just a minute. Appreciate your time, Mark. I told you an hour and 15. We're almost at an hour and 40. It's gone by.
You know I'm good for it, mate. You know I'm always good for it.
All right, that should be starting up any minute. Do you do power chat? Odysee,
I don't do power chat.
Is it a huge hit when Odysee got demonetized?
Yeah,
like I lost my main
Odysee
source
getting
of income
demonetized
for like the
was one
time.
of the worst things that happened to the ethno-nationalist sphere. And, anyway, I'll answer any questions that are for me.
7007 cent $0 on no FWY. I wrote an hour ago on Blunt Clarity podcast.
I'm the British Adam Green. Adam is the American Mark Collett.
Smiley face emoji. Smiley face emoji. My comment is still there. I have much respect for both of you. Lebanon emoji. Great Britain emoji. Peace sign emoji.
Oh no, too many emojis. Mark is not on an anti-Christian crusade though.
Loki _redneck mullet sent $0 on Thursday.
That's me and Adam's sort of one difference that we have.
You shouldn't slander him like that.
Me and Adam have our sort of little debate over that, but it's always very cordial because Adam is the perfect gentleman.
So we exhaust ourselves allowing Israel to rise up and take our.
Well, also Mark's doing something different too. We don't have the same like.
X89 sent $20. Hi,
Thank you,
Adam.
ABX89.
Great stream as usual.
Mark's got like an English like political group. Oh, there's HT.
Handsome Truth sent $5. I don't see why you should
Handsome
get the
Truth.
Jewish baby blood thing. When the rabbis do oral, they have
That's their own
documentation all
babies, and
over
they don't
Europe of
drink
this.
it.
They convince Christians to drink the blood of a rabbi and eat it's there.
If they're doing it, it's very fringe ones, and it doesn't give them magical powers.
Low
It's
IQ
greatly
anti-Semitism was
over-exaggerated.
spawned by
Handsome
No, it wasn't.
anarchy homosexuals telling
Wrong.
me how to I reject biblical anti.
He is a character. Do you know what? He's one of the nicest guys that I've chatted to. He's a nice guy. I like him.
Is the biggest.
I was calling Nick low IQ anti-Semitism before he ever said it, so that is not true that he coined it. Take your Jake Shields talking points somewhere else, HT. Oh, Lucas Gage and Nick, they're all calling me low IQ. They must be feds. Yeah, you could get out of here with that shit. But what was the other thing I was going to say there? I got interrupted. Not interrupted, but I had a thought and I lost it. Oh, yeah, about us having different goals. Him being the UK Adam Green. He's got a political thing where he's trying to, like, that is your group a secular group? Is that how you define it?
Yeah,
I mean, you accept Christians
we basically,
and pagans.
we are,
yeah.
We're an ethno-nationalist group. So if people come to us and they're Christian or they're atheists or whatever, we try to steer away from religious debate within our group because it's one of those things that can often cause more sort of bad feeling than anything else. It's one of those things.
Okay. Someone in the chat said, don't give him your money. Well, you're blocked, and fuck you. Don't watch. Troll.
What did they say?
Oh, they said, don't give this guy your money. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
I always think you should support Adam. Look, people like myself and Adam work very hard, and we do this because we're passionate about it. And people don't understand how much effort it takes. I do. I mean, how many shows have I done this week? This is the second show I've done today. It's the third show I've done this week. I've already put one Substack article out. I've got a Substack article and video coming out tomorrow and another show on Sunday. And usually I do a show on Monday, but couldn't do it because I was coming back from my camp. And when you look at how hard people like me and Adam work and the amount of output we put out, for me, at least 5 streams a week, 2 articles a week. It's tough stuff. And it takes a lot of work because we are not, within that monetized sphere on X or YouTube where we're just coining it like the sort of more kosher content creators. So if you can support Adam, please do. And I've met him in real life, and meeting people in real life gives you a really good take on who those people actually are. And Adam is a really lovely guy and very easy to get on with. But he's also a lot bigger than he looks on stream. Like, he looks so small on stream, but when you meet him in real life, he is like a Viking giant, and he made me look like a tiny little boy at the side of him.
You saw the Targaryen hair. You saw the blood of the dragon Viking princess daughter. So that's what he does. But dude, so many people that it's so bad faith. Like people will. One of the accusations I'll get is they'll say, "You're causing infighting. You're infighting." It's like, sorry, are you just trying to silence me? And I'm not allowed to criticize Christianity. I'm not allowed to say that it's a mythical Jewish religion. I'm not allowed to say that all the denominations and all the churches with the power are like anti-racist, anti-Semitism, and like would condemn most of these e-crusaders on the internet. So I tell the truth in good faith and do the research, and then all I get back is slander and lies and Fed jacketing and Jew jacketing, and that's the division. That's the division.
Well, look, I think one of the big problems in this movement, and this is going to really annoy some people, so strap yourselves in. There are, and I'm not naming names, there's a couple of people who very much very much like to Fed jacket people, that like to say things about people, accuse people of working for other people, but they won't enter a debate. And at the moment, there's been some people who've said to me horrible things about me, and I have said to them, if you want to say that to me on the stream when we debate these points, let's go. And none of them ever will. And I think if you are someone who wants to throw shade at others, you should at least man up and welcome the debate. And I will debate anybody of note on these topics that we've discussed tonight, as long as it's not just as long as the debate topic is not just, is Mark Collett a good person? I'm not sitting there sort of being sort of slandered and arguing for my name. But if it's a genuine debate on...
I'll debate you. The topic is Mark a crypto Jew. Let's debate that.
Mark a crypto Jew.
Let's debate. I think you're getting paid $7,000 per Telegram post. Let's debate that. That's good,
mate.
faith.
I can tell you this now. If I was getting paid $7,000 per Telegram post, I wouldn't be sat here sweating like a pig. I'd be in an air-conditioned palace playing computer games.
Yeah. And this is the problem with the Candace Charlie Kirk conspiracies too. They all want to tweet all day and talk a big game, and then they get challenged to debates and they run and hide scared. All of these people. It really is a despicable grift, and I hope everybody punishes these people. Did you see how it was just a couple months ago, all these same people doing the Charlie Kirk stuff were saying Netanyahu's really dead. And it's all AI videos. Just like they get everything wrong, and it's a huge problem because we need the truth, we need legitimacy. If all of our talking points are just so easily debunked and they just make you look like some psychopathic, retarded, liar, we're gonna lose. We're gonna lose if it's Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan and Alex Jones leading the charge against our issues. But anyway, we should wrap. Hour and 45. That's a good way.
Man, I was
Tell
just
them where they can find you.
Somebody in the chat was saying I hate Americans, and I was trying to explain that I love white Americans, but I hate the Judeo-American state and the American government. And there's a big difference between disliking the government and disliking the people. I hate the German government. I hate the French government. I hate the British government. I love the British people. I love the German people. I love the French people. People of European descent are the people I'm fighting for, but they're treacherous, traitorous, anti-white governments all need to fall. It's as simple as that.
Or just become less anti-white instead of falling. Yeah, that government control falls, and then different government that's not anti-white. Because like right now, the government in control isn't that anti-white. Like Trump and the Republicans, they at least give lip service to like pro-white stuff sometimes. They give lip service to like Trump said stuff about like our blood or like crazy stuffs about Somalians and stuff too. Like Trump's not. You don't point to Trump and go, "Oh, so anti-white, he hates
Adam,
white
if
people."
you would like a structured debate on whether
if Trump hates
government
white
should
people,
fall,
dude, Trump's a white supremacist. Get with the program, bro. Everybody knows that. He's the next Hitler. Come on. What do you mean?
Well,
All right.
I'm not a fan of the U.S. government. I'm not a fan of but I'm not a fan of the British government. I'm not, and all arms of the UK state. I view them largely as enemies of white people. I view the police as enemies of white people. I view the university educators and the state schooling system as enemies of white people. I think that. More or less every arm of the state has been co-opted, taken over, and turned into something which is a tool used as a beating stick, where white people are thrashed by the different arms of the state, and anti-whiteism is promoted by those arms of the state. So I'm consistent on that, and I don't just think it happens to the American people. I think it happens to us as well.
All right, Mark. Good to talk to you again. Thanks for coming
thanks.
on.
Just one last thing. Please sub me. Please, can you drop my Rumble address in the chat for people to subscribe to me over on there?
Didn't you do it already? I think I saw you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Hello, sub me. There we go. And also go and find me on what do you call it? What's it called? Forgot the name now. Substack. Anyway, Adam, it's been brilliant. I'm going to go and sit in a bathtub full of ice cubes until.
All right. Go take care of the kids. Take care, man.
Cheers. Bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. Leave a comment below. And I will see you guys again. Maybe tonight. Maybe we'll do a late night stream since we did the guest. First time I've had a guest in quite a while besides Amalek, who isn't really a guest, more of a riding shotgun co-host, but you guys get the picture. Maybe I'll start picking it up and do a new guest every week again. Get out of my bunker. Get out of my live stream solitary bunker. Mullet stream. Yeah, late night mullet stream. Tree pilled stream. All right, guys. Thank you, and I will see you soon.